With as much excitement as the announcement of the new Star Wars movie, Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, I thought I would do a list of, well, the top 5 best Star Wars video games ever made. So, what are we waiting for? Let's jump right in. Number 5 on the list is Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. Now, this game really was just out there. It was unlike any Star Wars game that had been released ever before. It was a racing game. It was, well, more or less the combination of NASCAR games that came out in the late 90s and Mario Kart. So that's pretty much what it culminated as. And not only that, but it really was a fun game. And it truly deserves a position in the top 5. Now, this game was released for PC, Nintendo 64, and Dreamcast, but growing up, I personally played the PC version, and that will always be my favorite version of the game. My number 4 pick would be Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader. Now, it was very hard trying to narrow down probably the top 5 Star Wars games of all time, let alone narrow them down to 10. But to be honest, these are all my opinion, and I respect if you disagree with it, but you cannot disagree that Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader deserves a position in the top 5 best Star Wars games. I remember playing this one when I was young. I got it secondhand, probably at a local flea market. I believe I paid about $10 for it from a vendor who was just set up. This was around, I'm going to say the fall of 2005. And I picked this game up and I played it non-stop. It was around the time I was in middle school, and this was one game that I played non-stop for probably the better half of 2 years after that. So, along with Battlefront 2, the original OG Battlefront 2, not that EA one, but that's another story. But anyway, Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader definitely deserves a spot in the top 5. The number 3 pick would be, well, of course, Lego Star Wars the video game, the original one from 2005. This game, I actually remember renting it from Movie Gallery. If you don't know what Movie Gallery is, then, well, it's along the same lines as if you don't know what Blockbuster is. But anyway, I remember renting this from Movie Gallery, and I beat it in about 2 days. And it was like a game that, I mean, it blew my mind, even just as a Lego game. I mean, I had played Lego games in the past, but none like this before. Of course, Lego games were still a new concept at the time, and this was just something completely new, and it was completely a game changer for that matter. Also, it gave me some spoilers about Episode 3, which, in retrospect, probably will, probably disappointed me a little bit, but I got over it fast. Anyway, Lego Star Wars 3, what did I say that? Lego Star Wars the video game. I don't know why I said 3. It's the number... okay, Lego Star Wars the video game is the number 3 in our top pick of best Star Wars video games of all time. And that's Our number 2 spot is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. And this was a really tough one to really decide on, because I didn't know if I wanted the first game to be in the top 5. I would probably place it 6, but that's just me personally. But I remember playing this game. It's another Movie Gallery story. I rented it from Movie Gallery for original Xbox. Years later, I would play it on the PC when I got older. But this game was completely, it refined everything from the first Knights of the Old Republic. And it was really a truly fun game, and I believe that it deserves the number 2 spot. Now, before we announce our number 1 pick, I want to mention one honorable mention of a game that I would have loved to have put in the top 5, but it's just my own personal opinion because it was a game I grew up with. But that game is Star Wars Episode 1: The Phantom Menace. Yeah, that gets our honorable mention for, in this list because I love this game. It was actually the very first Star Wars game I ever played. Now, the story about this one is, it was a game that I had rented. I first got a PlayStation back in the 90s, and I had rented it from a video store. I guess you could say it was a video section inside a Kroger. And I played this game, loved it, never did see it again. It disappeared for years. And then I ended up getting into Star Wars Episode 1 Racer when I got a PC back then. But years later, I was in a department store. This department store is now defunct, but it was called Value City. You may remember it if you lived in the area that these functioned in, but what they done is they had wholesale stuff. Well, not really wholesale, but they had stuff that it was kind of like Big Lots, I guess you could say. Anyway, there was a whole case full of these. Well, first, let me give you the setting. The year was 2004. Walked into this, now defunct department store, Value City, and they had a small case where they kept the video games. And this store was always behind the times. They still sold in 2004 PS1 games, Nintendo 64 games, all brand new. They actually didn't start carrying PS2 games in their stores up until around 2006. But what ended up happening is they went defunct around, I think, 2008. But I'm way off track now. So here's the thing. It was 2004, summer of 2004. I'm looking for something to play, and I see this game. I'm like, wait a second. I've played this before. It's been a really long time, but I've played this. So what I decided is I picked it up, played through it, beat the whole game. I think it took me about a week back then. And this was shortly before the release of Episode 3, about a year or so. And I played this game, loved it, and this will probably be the most talked about thing in this video out of everything, but I believe I wanted to put it in the top 5, but I decided, people really didn't care for this game, but in my personal opinion, I would have put it in my top 5. Because it was just one of those games that I truly loved as a child. And I always will. I'll still come back to it every now and then. I'll play it, I'll play through it once a year, spend like a couple days or a weekend and play it. And I just had to put it in my honorable mention. Now, the number 1 spot for best Star Wars video game would be Star Wars Battlefront 2, the OG Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now, I remember getting this game around 2006, shortly after it came out. I think I got it in January. It had a November release in 2005, I believe. And I had some Christmas money, bought it, loved it, played it. And I think a lot of people will agree that this is probably one of the best Star Wars games that were ever made and ever has been made. But I think that it deserves the number 1 spot because it really refined a lot of stuff from the first Battlefront. And not only that, but you got to actually live battles. You actually got to live the battles out. Unlike some of the, prior games in the past. I mean, you got to decide the fate of the galaxy pretty much with, your own battles, and there was stuff like Galactic Conquest, and just, it was amazing, and that's why I would put it as as the best Star Wars game ever made. And that's why it deserves the number one spot on the list, I believe. But that is our top 5 best Star Wars games of all time. These are just my personal opinions. You can respectively disagree. You may have other ones you would put in that position, but that's just my opinion. If you like this video, subscribe, and let me say this in the comments down below. If you I'm all mixed up. What was your favorite game, your favorite Star Wars game to play when you were a child, or even if you were an adult when you played these? But let's just say, what was your most favorite Star Wars game you ever played? And do you agree that Battlefront 2, the original Battlefront 2, deserved the number 1 position on our list? So, I hope you enjoyed this episode. We plan on doing another Star Wars themed episode tomorrow. It'll be a secret till then. So, until next time, I'll see you.